Look, this is a stock or a company that has really dominated the headlines all year. There's no news out today, although I thought it might be a little bit noteworthy because it has hit a 52-week low. The stock I'm talking about here is Afterpay, down about 36% since Square, or now called Block, made that very big acquisition play for them. What do you reckon of this? I mean, I know that you and I have talked about it a lot in the past, a company that seems to just be doing a lot of things right, but the valuation was up there for a while. Is this just a consequence of Block going down, or is there something else there, do you think?
No, it mostly is, mate, I think. And look, even that one-third fall this year, it's down almost half, if you can believe it, from its 52-week high.
Right.
On the 10th of February this year, $158.47 a share. Now, as we talk, $81.45. So it's been a tough old ride for an Afterpay shareholder. And it's fascinating. Even if you'd said back then, look, there's going to be this takeover, Square's going to pay a small fortune for the company, it's going to be great. And you're looking at it 12 months later going, man, how did that happen? A couple of things worth remembering, of course, that takeovers can go badly. And so if you think about takeover offers and the way these things can play out, you've got to be very careful with that. Second thing, as you say, it is absolutely largely about the Square share price fall. And so when Square did the deal with Afterpay, it didn't agree to pay a certain amount of money. It agreed to swap a certain number of Square shares for a certain number of Afterpay shares. And in the reality of that is, during that period of time, now, if the deal had been done earlier, you still would have had the same loss because you would have had those Square shares, but the Square share price has fallen. And you can almost track both companies' share price. You overlay the charts and see, effectively from that takeover date, both companies moving in tandem. There is some concern as well that in the US, the regulator is looking at buy now, pay later companies like Afterpay. And to be honest, Square called this part of its growth strategy. So add those two together, and there is some real concern about what is Square really worth? What is Afterpay worth to Square? In an environment where the Australian regulators kind of said, yeah, might be time to take another look, where the US regulators saying, hey, we're going to have a look for the first time and see if everything's hunky-dory. So it's one of those situations where you're playing regulatory arbitrage. It's not even takeover arbitrage. Right now, you're looking at those company share prices and saying, well, if the future's brighter than it might be, if the regulators are kind, if growth continues, if everything goes back to normal, and there's a bit of, by the way, the online-offline thing going on here too. We've seen so many companies that people walk away from the online only, that call it Zoom or whatever you want to talk about, to the offline world. Square was kind of caught up in that as well. If the future is brighter for Square and Afterpay than it currently looks, this is going to be a good price, but you are taking a Square bet, a bet on Square as a combined entity right now, rather than Afterpay particularly. There is a small and frankly growing chance that, but still small, that Square and Afterpay break up. This takeover doesn't go ahead for one reason or another. May well be just the simply share price on Afterpay's side, or from Square's perspective, some concern the regulator might get involved. It's really unlikely that it does get called off, but it's always possible. You need to keep that in mind. But yeah, it's been a really, really tough ride for a deal that otherwise should have been all beer and Skittles. Afterpay shareholders, unfortunately, sitting on a decent loss right now if you bought shares only 11 or 12 months ago.
Yes, true. Although if you did buy earlier than that, it's hard to have too much sympathy because you've probably done pretty well overall.
That's right.
What do you? And I guess a good reminder too that you can overpay even for very high quality stocks, and I think that was something that I was a little bit concerned about for a while there. Mark, what do you reckon? I've actually done the maths here. Basically, Afterpay shareholders get 0.375 of a Block share. Work that out, account for the FX difference, and it kind of gives you a share price of $83, and the market just a little bit below that there. So it's pretty much banking that this thing's going to go through as a deal, and the rest is up to Square Block share price and the FX rate. Anything else you'd add to that?
Well, obviously from our point of view, Afterpay is not a company that Teaminvest would be interested in. They lost 143 million last year, I think it was. So their losses are increasing. Now, I know that doesn't mean much in the environment where it's a sexy glamour stock and people have been backing it. So I'm not arguing that people shouldn't have made money on it, but when the Square offer lobbed, I thought Afterpay shareholders were really lucky, as in they were cashing in. But if we had a GFC type event now, which we will at some point, companies like this go broke, because they're burning money at a rate which is all very well when money's cheap and plentiful. But it's a high risk business, so I wouldn't suggest anybody buys it now on the speculation that it's at $80 it's cheap, because there's no fundamental basis for that. And I think the regulatory risk that Scott was talking about is real, And I think it's highly unlikely the US will go, oh yeah, that's okay, no worries, because they will be being heavily lobbied by Visa, MasterCard, and everybody else in the payments industry who goes, what's going on? These guys have got free for all, they can do whatever they like, and it's basically completely unregulated, and we are drowning in regulation. So there's an arbitrage that they've taken advantage of, and quite frankly, I'm surprised they've got away with it as long as they have.
I think sometimes in these high-tech areas, it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission and sort of go the Uber model